I'm Shelley Garwith, and I'm really excited to take you through I believe, one of the biggest hidden causes of inflammation in your body, which is parasites and the connection with your symptoms and parasites. So I just want to let you know at the beginning of this masterclass, this is not medical advice. This is for information purposes only. Please do not substitute this for the advice provided by your doctor or other healthcare professional. You should not use this information available on or through the Shelley Garland website or in this class that I'm teaching for diagnosing or treating a health problem or disease. Information and statements regarding dietary supplements have not been evaluated by the Food and Drug Administration unless specifically advised. However, the FDA does approve of all the supplements that I use and the companies that I do use, just so you know. Who am I? I am Shelley Garwood, and I am New Zealand's very first certified nutritional therapy practitioner. I was the first person trained in New Zealand, and now I have been able to work with thousands of clients from all around the world, one-on-one through my 10-day programs, my all sorts of different 28-day programs over the years, my liver detoxes, my corporate work, going into organizations and really supporting their people and their culture to make sure that you have the best health results possible. And I feel extremely privileged that my health journey led me to this place. So I'm an ex-chartered accountant, investment banker, and then my health came crashing down. Now, I will share how parasites ended up being a part of my health issues. It was really quite a major part of it. But for now, let me tell you that you're in safe hands. I've had a decade worth of experience with my own practice that I used to have a physical practice in downtown Wellington in New Zealand, but because I had so many online clients and international clients, now I am fully online only. So, and it is my pleasure that I have done that I get to work with you, that you through you listening to this masterclass, and you might take that further in terms of joining a 10-day parasite program or joining one of my 12-month programs where we really get to delve into your health. So I absolutely love the work that I get to do because I love the fact that I help people get better energy. They get better sleep again. You get rid of the night sweats. We balance your hormones. Like clients suddenly realize that having any sort of symptoms with their hormones is not normal. We get rid of that pregnancy bloat that so many people are used to, or the inflammation where you can't even fit your wedding rings anymore because your fingers get so inflamed and they puff up, or the swelling around your ankles. Like so many symptoms that I get to free you of. And so, what I encourage you to do at the beginning of this masterclass is be open-minded, stay curious, and start linking back the connection between some of your symptoms. And if you've never looked into parasites before, starting to track to see if this could be a part of your health journey. And what I can say is for a lot of clients that come to see me one-on-one or in group programs, quite often a client might say they might be in their mid 30s trying to get pregnant and they've miscarried a few times, or they might be in their late 40s with awful menopausal symptoms, or in their 30s not being able to lose weight, not sleeping very well, whatever it is. And quite often a client will be like, oh, when I traveled wherever you live in the world, but when I went away, I went on this holiday to Asia or Africa, I got food-like symptoms, or I got food poisoning symptoms, sorry, not food-like poisoning, but food poisoning symptoms, or I had horrific diarrhea, or I had a vomiting stomach bug for weeks on end. Whatever it is, quite often they'll be able to relate to a holiday or food poisoning in their local country, or while they're eating sushi, raw fish, for example, and then their skin started to flare, or the bloating started after that point in time, or suddenly you were craving sugar all the time, or you took a load of antibiotics for some condition and then your gut bacteria changed and the commensal bacteria. So all of these things, I'll talk to you about what commensal bacteria is. So stay open-minded as you listen to this masterclass in terms of trying to piece together your symptoms and clues for was it parasites? Are parasites a part of your journey and a part of your symptoms? And I really encourage you, if you've never done a parasite program before, do it. Like I believe, and Todd Watt and Jay Davidson, the owners behind and the creators behind Cellcore, a major brand that I work with that is actually American based, they would say that 99% of the population in today's world has parasites. So I'm framing it from that angle. That's definitely what I believe as well, and what I've seen in clinical practice working with clients. So with that lens on, now let's dive in to this masterclass. Now, just for a moment, pause. What if you're bloating, that bum itching when you wake up at 1 a.m. or 2 a.m. and you just get that itch? Or the hair itching, the dandruff, the psoriasis, the hair. What if you're fatigued, needing that coffee throughout the day, not living without coffee, like really needing it, or your anxiety, the low mood, the constant stress on your body, the kind of depressive mood as well. What if cellulite, the constant snacking, the needing the sugar, needing the food for energy? What if your weight fluctuations? What if your night sweats? What if all of these things aren't actually random? What if they're actually because of parasites? So, as I've said already, most of us actually have parasites. Yet, when we go to our medical professional, you are going to find that they get dismissed. Quite often, you're told that they don't exist, they only exist in third world countries, it wouldn't happen to you, they're not true, it's all made up, it's blah blah blah, whatever it is. It's all these influencers on social media just trying to tell you that you've got parasites now. So, quite often, when you go to your trusted medical practitioner, they will dismiss you, they will tell you that parasites don't exist. And so, where do you go from there? Where do you take your collection of symptoms and how do you get to understand how they're all related and whether parasites could be a part of your health journey? This is what we're going to unpack in this masterclass. The thing that I find really interesting is when I talk to people and when people join my programs, if they've got cats or if they've got dogs, they'll always be like, yeah, of course I worm them monthly. Like myself included, like I grew up in a family, my childhood family, where we grew up with a dog and we wormed our dog every single month. But my parents never did a parasite program with us. Obviously, they have now, decades later, since I've gotten into health, but we never did a parasite program as a family growing up. Yet we always did it with our cats and with our dogs religiously every month. And then another thing that I find really interesting is when people are skeptical of parasites in adults, a lot of parents will often say that they see worms in their children's bums, in their children's bum hole, and that their children will change with the full moon. Now, parasites definitely, there is a connection. You don't have to do a parasite program in line with the full moon, but there is a connection between the full moon and parasites. So, parents believe that parasites exist for children, and they'll often go and get anti-worming over-the-counter drugs from the local chemist, the local pharmacy. So there's not a lot of doubt or misbelief or anything around animals and like cattle, for example. Farmers are always deworming their cattle, and there's not a lot of doubt or any sort of cynicism around parasites in children. Yet as we age, all of a sudden for adults, it's like, no, we wouldn't have them. But why wouldn't we have them? Because the same way that children get them is the same way most of us get them as adults. Yet there's actually more ways that we can get them as we age, which you will see in a moment. So let me talk to you about a few different client case studies first and see if some of these symptoms resonate with you, maybe even with your childhood, like these young children that I'm about to share. Their symptoms definitely sum up my childhood. Now, also, what I want to say right here at the beginning is, and this is no judgment of mums. I don't know, but anecdotally, based on looking back at my childhood, looking at my symptoms, and then when I stool tested my parents both had a large load of parasites, as did I. And mums can definitely pass on parasites to their children. So I think I was probably born with a load of parasites. So for women wanting to get pregnant, in between pregnancies, considering getting pregnant, I always encourage women as much as possible to get rid of their parasites before they get pregnant. So for me, when I was in, well, I still am, but in clinical practice, in clinic, like in my actual clinic downtown in Wellington, a lot of clients would say to me, "Oh, you're still single. Have you met somebody yet?" And I was like, well, no, I'm holding belief that I am going to meet my husband, but also I'm doing a whole bunch of health work to clean up my body so that when I meet Mr. Right and the person that I want to marry, we're good to go to have children because, I'm already later in life meeting somebody because of my awful health story, which we will come to. And I missed out on some of those prime years when a lot of my friends were meeting, dating, and then getting married. I didn't get that time because of my health story. And so I was really working on clearing out my parasites. So my future child, in this case, my son, wasn't given the gift that I was potentially anecdotally looking back on symptoms where I was born with parasites. So Hillary is really common, this little girl of a lot of my clients, of my younger clients, and where the parents come to me and they've got parasites, and then or they come to me for their children first. Now, this client came to me for her child because the symptoms were so bad. And then through helping her child, she realized through all the learning around parasites that her and her husband would also have parasites and the younger brother would have parasites too. So Hillary was the canary in the coal mine in terms of she showed her parents the symptoms so the whole family could get healing. I guess you could say the same about me and my family. Some of us are more sensitive and will show up some of the symptoms to help the community and help all of us get better, is what I believe. So Hillary was 5. Her mum came to me actually because she was desperate. She was working full time. She had a very busy life and she had 2 young children. And her sleep was so hugely disrupted. She couldn't cope. Like she was absolutely exhausted. And she was waking up multiple times every single night for her young daughter. And so yes, we could have supported the mum absolutely with her adrenal health, but the mum really needed her child to get better so that she could get some sleep. And I totally was on board with that. So, how Hillary was presenting, and this is really common, especially in young children, this was common of my childhood. However, it's also some of these symptoms you'll definitely see in parents. Number one, grinding teeth is a real key. Yes, it can be a stress symptom, but then we're looking at what is causing your body to be stressed. So in adult years, if I ever started grinding my teeth, I would know that I had parasites again. So when we're grinding our teeth really badly, and especially children, and I was a teeth grinder too, it is definitely the root cause of that is parasites. So Hillary's dentist was so worried about the damage she was doing to her teeth already as a little 5-year-old. The mum was like, my gosh, if I don't get to the root cause of this is going to cost me so much money in dental bills. Her daughter also didn't poo every single day. And multiple doctors told her not to worry, told her that that wasn't a problem at all, that that's very common of children, and justified it away. Now, the thing is, you might be in a friendship circle where a number of children aren't pooing every day, and so that is your common reality, but it's actually not optimal for health. But whether you're an adult or a child or looking at this class in terms of from a parent's point of view, all of us should be pooing every 17 to 24 hours. So for all of us, now when we're not pooing, our transit time is not within the 17 to 24 hours. It actually opens up problems for actually feeding through the fermenting of the through our poos, like not getting rid of all of the garbage that is in our poos, that ferments in our body and now feeds commensal bacteria, which can then help increase the parasitic load in your body because your gut balance is now out of balance. And now there is scope for these other things to come in and really impact your gut bacteria. So please bear that in mind that even if you listen to this whole masterclass and think that you haven't been impacted by any of these exposures to parasites, if you're not pooing, if your transit time's not between 17 to 24 hours and it's longer than that, so you've got a slow transit time, your gut is definitely imbalanced. There's no way that it can't be. Okay, so we've already got that. Her child would have bed multiple times. Oh, child would have bed every night. Sorry, the next client multiple times a night, and that's a really common parasite symptom. She also had very sensitive skin, and remember, Hillary's only 5 years of old. 5 years. She'd been on a very restrictive diet since she was 2. Her mum had worked with somebody else that was like, we must restrict your diet. Now, the thing is, I'm a nutritionist and I actually believe that diet is the key to health. So, I am a big believer that we want to include as many foods as possible in your diet. However, I also believe and know from working with so many clients, when you're triggered by food, it's telling us that there's something else going on in your body. So, I, so, while I don't believe in restrictive diets long term, I do believe in them in the short term to help you heal and get optimal health. It's much easier to heal your body. But anytime you're reacting to foods, it's always telling me more about your gut health. Her belly was often bloated, which was amazing that her mum noticed. And she noticed a connection between the full moon and her daughter's sleep. So she would sleep much worse. Her behavior changed around the full moon as well. So her mum was desperate, like I said, and was willing to try anything, and it wouldn't have probably mattered what I said. She was going to do it. Now, Hillary's mum also didn't believe that these were just standard childhood symptoms. Not at all. So we started Hillary just on Para 3, which is often how I begin with most small humans. We just start them on the Para 3 because you don't have to ingest it. You can use Para 3, and you can see this on my website, all the different ways you can use Para 3. So it's really, I think that every family should have this in their natural health care kit, especially in the winter. Like there's so many ways to use it. So this is all her mum did with her. And straight away, within 48 hours, the mum saw X in Hillary's poo. Her teeth grinding got worse, and the mum was like, "Oh my gosh, my sleep!" And she woke up even more. So her sleep was absolutely terrible. It got more disrupted. But I had pre-warned Hillary's mum that this might happen, and she was committed to it, and she stuck with the process. And by day 6, Hillary was no longer waking up during the night. She was no longer grinding her teeth. She was going to the toilet and having perfect poos. She was seeing so many eggs come out of Hillary's butt. Like it was absolutely ridiculous, the sheer numbers of eggs. The mum was absolutely shocked. So just so you know, Hillary never craved sugar, and she never had an itchy bum. Like her mum never saw her itch herself ever. Um, but the main reason that Hillary's mum came to see me was because she wanted her sleep to improve, and now she is. And she wanted to fix Hillary's teeth grinding, and I read somewhere on the internet that teeth grinding and parasites could be connected. So by the end of working with Hillary and her mum, all of Hillary's symptoms were gone. Her skin no longer was getting rashes. She had really great energy. Her behavior improved. No longer teeth grinding, no longer wetting the bed, was sleeping through the night. And her whole face, she didn't have dark rings under her eyes anymore. And she could eat a wide range of foods without getting any symptoms. So it was really life-changing for Hillary and Hillary's mum, because now she could sleep each night. And then she went on, her and her husband, to do the Parasite program as well. My next client is an 8-year-old boy called Zach. He had been diagnosed with ADHD, but his mum didn't want to put him on drugs. So she was open to trying different health therapies, techniques, supplements, detox, like the foot detoxes that we have, and that I have group of practitioners in New Zealand, especially, that have clinics that I train and that I support. So Zach showed up and he was covered in sores all over his body. Now, these looked like, if you've heard of school sores, they looked like scabies, rabies, like and they were constantly scabbing, and the children were all at school were always teasing him about it. Zach also had incessive hunger, like was constantly starving, constantly complaining to his mum that he was hungry, always in the cupboards. Like his mum would feed him, and she knew she had a boy, so obviously he ate more in her mind. But this felt like more than what a boy would normally eat. Plus, she often found him sneaking into cupboards, trying to eat biscuits, sweet foods, white bread, like getting his hands on white bread, like anything that was the refined carbohydrates. He ate a lot of pasta, and he would really crave those foods all the time. He also wet his bed, but would often wet his bed multiple times a night. His parents had been to multiple expert specialists, trainers around stopping the bed wetting, trying all the different techniques, and they implemented absolutely everything. And sometimes the bedwetting would get better for a few nights, and they'd think that they'd finally found the fix, and then it would come back. And that's a real parasite symptom. So then what happened with Zach was once again, same thing as Hillary. We did the para three for Zach, and exactly the same thing. His behavior changed. Like he became much calmer, he became more regulated in his nervous system. He wasn't, as his mum would say, all over the place. Like parents commented that he was better behaved, that he was easier to be around, would be the best way of describing how most people felt about Zach going forward. His scabs and scabies and sores were all gone. Like by the time we finished with this, and suddenly his constant need for snacking and hiding in the cupboards, like his mum could use my protocol in terms of how we need to eat for children. And for adults, which is the balanced plate of protein and fats and fiber, she could use that formula, being an ex-accountant, love a good formula, she could use that formula and actually get him full. And he wasn't needing the sugary snacks. He wasn't needing to eat in between his meals. He was like very satiated, very happy. He didn't really go for anything like the cakes and the sweets after that. And his bedwetting miraculously stopped. So these are just two examples of younger clients where, and just to draw attention in children, how it shows up, because quite often as adults, we know what to look for. But with our younger children, our younger people, our nieces and nephews, people in our care, people, our friends' children will often hear conversations about bedwetting or teeth grinding. And if you're not educated and empowered to go, hey, have you thought about this? And so that's why I really wanted to. And quite often, if you look back and you might already know this about your childhood, I might be describing your childhood, which will give you a clue, like me, it's describing my childhood in terms of how long you'd had these parasites for. So by the time we're about to move on to my health journey, but if I had been born with these parasites and then my health came crashing down when I was in my late 20s, that's almost 3 decades that I'd had them in my body. Now that is a lot of eggs that turns into larvae, that turns into adults, the adult then gives eggs, like produces eggs again. So that is a lot of times that that cycle has gone on in my body without me even knowing it. And then as my energy started to get worse and worse and worse, parasites were definitely playing in to my health. So I couldn't out coffee it by the end of my time at Macquarie, the investment bank in Sydney. So my parasite story happened in terms of I had a number of symptoms like Hillary and Zach in my childhood. I then got Epstein-Barr virus, shingles multiple times, couldn't sleep at night, like just had a lot of things leading up. Then I became a chartered accountant, moved to Sydney, Australia, and worked in an investment bank, and I was a real overachiever doing marathons, triathlon, like all the things. Like really, I loved sport, I loved exercise, and I loved working hard. I really loved my job, and I loved climbing the corporate ladder. So I definitely pushed myself really hard, and eventually my health came crumbling down. Now, at the time, the medical world put it down to a few things in Australia. They put it down to my thyroid health. I had an underactive thyroid health that they had started putting me on medication before my health crash for about 18 months beforehand. And I was at the maximum load of thyroid medication that I could be on. And I was still exhausted, still struggling to get out of bed. I also had an influenza and a chest infection that had gone on for months at the time that my body was crashing. And so eventually, after being so sick and not being able to get out of bed in Australia, not being able to go to work or anything like that, the medical world did, first of all, diagnosed me with chronic fatigue syndrome, which over a decade ago didn't mean anything in terms of there wasn't a lot of research or a lot of help out there. And then eventually that all got even worse, and my body just started deteriorating so badly that the medical world was basically said that I was going to die, and there was nothing more that they could do for me. Like they had enough reasons for why my body had crashed that they were happy with that outcome, basically, and that diagnosis. However, this was my life and I absolutely loved it, and I wasn't going to die without a fight. I didn't believe that all of these things had just happened to me and there was no fix for it. However, I was in bed sleeping 23 and a half hours a day. I'd lost my cognitive function. I couldn't go to the bathroom by myself. I had to move back. My parents came to Australia, brought me back home to New Zealand, and were taking full-time care of me. And I was in bed all day, every day. So, how are you going to fix yourself? Anyway, long story short, I saw, after seeing all these experts from around the world, a local doctor in New Zealand actually said, what about food inflammation? And so I got rid of some foods that were causing me inflammation, and I started looking at my gut bacteria and looking at leaky gut and having bone broth and fermented foods. And that allowed me to stay awake for a couple of hours a day. And then I worked with specialists and experts to retrain my brain and get my cognitive function back again. And as part of that, when I was researching my own health, this was before I started studying nutrition, I came across Jay Davidson on the internet and parasites, and this absolutely just blew me away. I'd never heard of parasites, and I started he was running an online summit. Like this is like over a decade ago when online summits were really common and a really big deal. And I started listening to all the functional doctors. I didn't even know what a functional doctor was at that time. And it sounded like me. I was like, this sounds like me. I'm going to study nutrition. I'm going to get myself better, and I'm going to do a stool test. Now, when I did my stool test, the lab in New Zealand at the time rang me up and they were like, who is this person? Because this is one of the worst loads of parasites we've ever seen on a stool test. And I was like, it's actually me. And so as I worked on getting rid of those initial parasites that I'd probably had, and we don't know for sure, but anecdotally for a lot of decades, my energy improved. My cognitive function improved. I didn't have skin rashes at the time. I'd had a history of skin rashes, but for me, my thyroid health, my blood markers started to improve. My iron, for the first time, my serum iron started to get good. Now, low serum iron, parasites feed off your blood. Literally, they suck your blood. And so I had a history of most of my life of having low iron, but nobody could tell me why. They just always said that I didn't eat enough red meat. The truth is, though, I grew up with parents that loved red meat, and we'd often be eating red meat a few times, at least a few times a week. Like it was something that I always had. So it never made sense to me that I was always low in iron. I really had terrible periods. I had all sorts of hormonal symptoms, and I'd done my Dutch hormonal test as well at the same time. And I had really low just that low estrogen, which is one of the causes of low estrogen is your gut bacteria links to parasites quite often. So I worked on getting rid of the parasites, and now, as you'll see, one of the major reasons you get parasites is through animals, through traveling, through eating pork and bacon, which I do eat, through children. And so I'm forever doing these programs as maintenance. So it's not enough. So initially, I got rid of the load on my stool test. And now I always have to be proactive at preventing them. Sometimes I do feel the symptoms in my body. I know that I have got parasites again in my body. The cool thing about how I work with clients is you get very empowered and you will learn how to see the symptoms. And that's why clients will sign up to do rounds of the 10-day Parasite program because they'll do one and then they might do a second one. And by the third program, they really understand the symptoms they're looking for. And so they're able to put themselves on the program because they know that they've got parasites again. Now, that to me is what is health is all about, being educated and being empowered to look after your body and give your body exactly what it needs when it needs it. Okay, so I'm forever redoing these 10-day programs because I'm forever being exposed to them. And I think a lot of us are. Now, my son, Harvey, this is him as a 4 month old. I went to when he was 4 months old. At the time, there was no way of doing stool testing in New Zealand or Australia. We now, in the last few months, we've now got NutriSearch. So every parent in New Zealand and Australia has this option to be able to test their children's stool health. But at the time, and Harvey is now 2 and 4 months because the Cell Core Conference is coming up. It's always in May. Um, the only way to test his stools was to take him to America with me and take him to the Cell Core Conference, which, I love parasites, so this was quite perfect for me. I did the stool testing through Tiny Health, and if you're in America, the UK, even Australia and New Zealand, you can do it through Tiny Health as well. So there's always options. And so for me, it was really important after working with clients for a decade and clients not knowing whether they had parasites and whether they got them in childhood or not, it was really important for me to be able to look at Harvey one day when he asked me, Mum, did I have parasites? Did you give me parasites when I was young? If he ever has symptoms going forward, I was like, but I've got this piece of paper, I've got this data where, whatever happens with his health, if I'm ever talking to a pediatrician, I can be like, hey, but at birth, he wasn't born with these parasites, but at birth, he didn't have these symptoms. And he didn't actually have, at the 4 month age, he didn't have rashes. His skin wasn't inflamed or anything like that. Like there was not, he didn't have cradle cap, which is a common one for young children. He was a great breastfeeder. He didn't get bloated. His poos were really great. So he didn't, and he went poo every single day. He wasn't a baby that would go for weeks without going poos. So he didn't actually have any classical parasite symptoms, but I just wanted to make sure. Now, what I found really fascinating about doing the tiny health stool test and working with a pediatrician over there, what I learned was how supportive breast milk is when we use breast milk. And I was a breastfeeding mum, and it doesn't matter if you're not, I'm not here to judge, we can do it other ways, but how supportive me eating certain herbs, which you'll get if you do the 10-day parasite program. We give you all of these, all the herbs that you can be eating, especially like I created a formula of chai tea for me based on Harvey's analysis and what sort of herbs really help with making sure children don't get parasites. And so I would drink this chai tea every single day so that Harvey, through my breast milk, like my breast milk became a tool to make sure that Harvey didn't get parasites, basically, and to really protect his gut and to protect him from parasites. Then I also use this because I wanted a very clear plan around what first foods I should be incorporating. I really encouraged Harvey when we started with solids to start eating raw garlic, raw onion, those types of traditional foods. Like when we look at Indian culture, for example, a lot of their spices and herbs are culturally around protecting the gut bacteria and protecting the humans, the adults and the children from exposure to parasites and killing them off with herbs in their diet. So that was the approach what I took with Harvey. But what I found very interesting with his health is while he didn't have parasites, he had a lot of commensal bacteria and already he didn't have enough good gut bacteria. Now, I was aware of this because he was a C-section baby, so I knew we'd really need to work on his good gut bacteria. But I was actually quite surprised at the level of commensal bacteria. Now, commensal bacteria it's kind of like the pendulum in music where it can sway one way or the other. It can sway to the good or it can sway to the bad. So if we don't start looking after this and really changing, so for me, it was really focusing on Harvey's good, like really filling him up with all the good gut bacteria. in terms of fermented foods, fermented drinks, and working with a pediatrician in Harvey's case, she wanted me to actually get him to start to via my breast milk as well, and but via his when I express into the bottle, really putting actual probiotics into that so that we could really boost those good gut bacteria so it didn't allow the opportunity for parasites to show up in his gut health anytime soon. We had animals, cats and dogs, so it's cool, and children play with children. It's likely that obviously at some stage parasites are going to turn up as part of the story, but I just didn't want it to happen when he was really, really young. So I really believe that we need to prioritize our children's health and really prioritize how we're feeding our children. So be very intentional, very deliberate around the proteins, the fats, and the fiber to make sure that they're pooing within that same transit time and they're not going for days without being constipated and not pooing. But also around the herbs that we're giving our children and making sure we're giving them the herbs and that we're getting in all the good fermented foods and fermented drinks and they can actually digest their food as well. So those key are really key and it's how we set our children up so that they don't necessarily get parasites from a very young age and then be like me, where they could have had them in their bodies for decades, impacting their energy levels, impacting my sleep, impacting my skin health, impacting my period health. I had horrific periods, impacting the foods that I became inflamed to, impacting my thyroid health, keeping me in this state of sympathetic dominance. Like always, I was such a little stress head. And, obviously that came through on having shingles multiple times before I was even 25, and then my thyroid health, and then my ultimate decline in health. Now, another beautiful story is Georgia. Now, what I love about Georgia is when she first came to see me, she didn't know anything about me and she joined a 10-day parasite program a year ago in the new year, in the January one. She was like, this sounds like this is for me. Now, Georgia had been diagnosed with lymphedema and was told that there was absolutely nothing she could do for it. She was just going to have to live with those symptoms. And now, lymphedema for Georgia obviously showed up in terms of fluid retention, cellulite, and swelling, but actually in pain as well. She would be in a lot of pain. So she accepted it on one level because that's what she was told, but always held hope that there would be a solution and she kept searching. And that's how she ended up coming into my world, was that she kept searching. Now, what we found really fascinating was when she was doing the 10-day parasite program, she straight away started seeing results. Her rashes cleared, her hunger, like her always needing to snack, always being hungry, always wanting food, her cellulite shifted, her swelling changed, her lymphatic system was no longer congested anymore. She got white eyes again. Her energy, like she couldn't believe the amount of energy that she actually had now. There was so many improvements that she noticed straight away from doing the program. However, after doing the program and her following me on social media, I was posting about how mosquitoes can actually pass on parasites, which is what is in this PDF that you get with this masterclass. And Georgia had a very vivid memory and actually reached out to me on social media on my stories to say that actually she remembered being in Australia when she got bitten by a mosquito. And it was after that that she got diagnosed with lymphedema and her health remarkably changed. And so that was a huge eye opener for her. And intuitively or deep down, she had known that there was always hope with her lymphedema, that it could be healed. But really importantly, she could make that connection and then she could see how long she'd had parasites for and really how they'd been impacting and limiting her life, especially her energy levels and her ability to be a mum. She was a great mum, but just having more energy, you're always going to be a better mum, and her business. And all the symptoms that she'd put up with, her period health being awful, like numbers and numbers of things all changed once she dealt with the parasites in her body. Like that is the power of getting rid of these parasites. It's so amazing. Jess is another beautiful example of somebody that joined my 10-day parasite program as well from social media, the power of sharing on social media. And when Jess joined, she was absolutely exhausted. Like she'd been told she'd had chronic fatigue syndrome. She was surviving life, but she was definitely not thriving in life. She struggled to do she was a personal trainer, but she really struggled with her job. She struggled with her exercise. She had constant bloating, constant gut issues, anxiety, poor sleep, bumpy rashes. And like it was while she looked skinny on one level, a lot of people would judge her and be like, but you're skinny. What is your problem? When she did the Parasite program, her figure remarkably changed. Like there was no puffiness, no inflammation anymore. But more importantly for her, Jess got her energy back. She didn't have these crashes throughout the day anymore. Like she just loved her life. She bounced out of bed. She had sustained energy throughout the day. Her bloating was gone, the puffiness was gone. And she didn't just do one program, she did a couple of them. And so, but she saw remarkable results from that first program. That is why she wanted to do the second program. Then we have Danny. Now, Danny is a mum of one beautiful son. She is married, but her husband works away from home quite a lot. Now, Danny joined once again. I can still remember the social media conversations that we had that on the DMs where she was like, I'm going to be traveling halfway through this program. Will I be okay? And I was like, absolutely. She was going away for a girls' weekend for the weekend. And I said, the power of the 10-day program is I'm actually coaching you through it. Like, it's not just here you go, off you go, you're done. It's very much like, okay, great. Every single day we do a new protocol for you based on life, based on your symptoms, based on your drainage pathways, based on your liver and your lymphatic system and how your body's responding. And so, based on that, knowing that she was going away for that weekend, we dosed her up on the Friday or the Thursday, whatever it was, and then we went low dose so she wasn't going to have any symptoms. And then we increased the dose from when she was back home again. Now, when I say symptoms, she didn't want any explosive poos. She didn't want to be looking at parasites in the toilet bowl while she was traveling, and she wanted her energy. She didn't want to crash or like have headaches. All of those things you get tools in the 10-day parasite program to make sure that you don't have those symptoms. We don't need those things. So in the portal, you get a whole bunch of videos that you can problem solve all of those symptoms. And then you also get real life coaching from me in the Telegram group. So straight away, when Danny did it at the end, she was blown away. She was so grateful that she hadn't let the weekend being away stop her from doing it. She has now done 3 rounds of the Parasite program. And every time she sees different things, the latest one that she just did this year, she saw a bunch of eggs come out for the first time. She had never seen eggs come out in her poos before. So the baby eggs, so babies, obviously, eggs is like stopping them before they turn into adult parasites in her body. She also found it the hardest one. Her energy was the worst it's been because her body was working at such a different level. So we all have different experiences. She also, though, came out with the best energy ever. Her period health is the best it's ever been. Her weight and shape of her body has remarkably changed. She's gotten rid of the puffiness. Her brain health is just clearer. Like that's the best way she can describe it. But every single round, Danny has gotten better and better and better, and her symptoms have gotten less and less and less, which is just the really exciting part of all of this. So let's talk about some common symptoms that you may not connect with parasites, but they are, in my world, as a practitioner, these are the types of things when I'm talking to clients where alarm bells are going off for me and I'm going parasites, parasites, parasites. So itchy skin, skin rashes. Well, the reason why you itchy is a thing with parasites is that's how they get spread. They often get spread under our fingernails. And so by making you itch, whether it's your scalp, whether it's your bum, whether it's your skin, you're now spreading these all over your body. So itchy skin, itchy scalp, major sign of parasites. Anal itching, that bum itch. Thrush, candida, also parasite symptoms. Bloating that changes. So you don't know why you get it. You can't put it down to a specific food. Some days you look pregnant, some days you don't. That is all parasite related. Waking up multiple times a night. It's not just because you're in perimenopause or whatever else you've been told. It's often parasites. Teeth grinding, restless sleep, 3 p.m. energy crash, anxiety spikes, hormonal symptoms, often, especially like heavy bleeding, discharge for days on end, often always getting like really, really bad periods that is parasite related that you probably didn't know that was connected. Random weight gain from inflammation. You can't put your why you're gaining weight, why you lose weight. Your weight's always changing. You're either underweight or overweight, but it doesn't make sense why. Cellulite, constant snacking, always wanting, and that constant snacking just means like hungry. It doesn't mean that you're always eating sugar or cakes or fizzy drinks. A lot of people think that is the only symptoms, but it's not. Skin flares, constant, oh, and I've said those ones as well. So they're not even all the symptoms. That's why I get you to the parasite quiz. If you haven't done the parasite quiz, because ear infections, I haven't even included ear infections. I haven't even included tinnitus. Like so many tinnitus, tinnitus, whatever way you want to word it, and ear infections in childhood. Like that is a common parasite program. Common parasite symptom, not program. Vertigo is often connected to uh, parasites and then being on a very restrictive diet, food causing you symptoms, feeling better not eating certain foods. These often leaky gut, getting gut inflammation, constipation. These are all things connected to parasites. So I haven't even been able to include all of the symptoms because there really is so many. Dandruff, for example, psoriasis, all of these things, all, like there is just, I say all, but it's more that there are just so many reasons, so many symptoms that are actually connected to parasites. And you can see why a lot of people, I believe, and Dr. Jay Davidson and Todd Watt believe that just 99% of us have parasites. And if you've got some of these symptoms, my biggest piece of encouragement would be do the 10-day parasite program with me because you're going to learn about your lymphatic system. You're going to learn about your liver. You are going to learn so many other things that getting rid of the parasites is just a bonus. Like you get so much support. You get a decade worth of my help and my clinical experience in this program. So I really encourage you to do it because you will learn so much about your body and about your health. So when you go to your doctor, and this is why it gets quite confusing for people, and I really understand that. The medical world, couple of things, they really only test for three things, those three things. And they generally only do one stool test, and it's only within a 24-hour period. Now, what you'll see on the 10-day parasite program, and when you talk to people in a 24-hour window, you might not actually see anything in your child's poo or in your own poo. So to only do one test, and so functional nutrition, and I've got a whole masterclass on why the medical world doesn't believe in parasites, that reach out to us if you want to learn more about that, if you want to dig deeper into that. So I'm only just going to say high level. But even in functional testing, they do a 3-day stool sample, but that's still going to miss some because even 3 days might not be long enough. So there's actually a lot of flaws with the medical system, only testing for three major parasites, and then the life cycle of a parasite, and then needing to actually show it in your stools. What if it doesn't show up in that 24-hour window? So that's where it becomes an issue. And so there's a lot of flaws to this testing, for starters. So when the medical world says that they don't believe in them, it is a big call to make, and it's a big call to make with such limited data. So why are we seeing more people with parasites? I often get asked this. Why are we seeing more people with parasites than, say, our great-grandparents' generation? Did all our great-grandparents have parasites? Did they need to take these herbs? Companies like Cellcore didn't exist back then, and there weren't social media influencers talking about parasites. And nor were there functional nutritionists talking about parasites either. So, a few reasons why we're seeing more parasites and more people are being exposed to parasites is because of our antibiotic use. Our great grandparents didn't use antibiotics, they didn't even exist. So, we weren't changing our gut bacteria and really killing off all that good gut bacteria, creating more commensal bacteria to create more bad, for want of a better word, gut bacteria. So, our whole makeup of our gut has changed. We've got that commensal bacteria, that opportunistic bacteria that when fed the wrong foods in our diet, it is going to then make them more shift more towards the bad side. So we get that imbalance once again. Then we also get the fact that a lot of us are not eating fermented foods and fermented drinks as part of our daily diet, like our great grandparents were, or we find in a range of other cultures where fermented foods is just a part of their childhood. And it's like baking cookies, you do your ferments, and then you as a family eat them every single day. So we are not seeing those habits be passed on from generation to generation. We're seeing a lot more people with constipation than our grandparents' generation because of our diets, because of the stress, because of how we're eating and what we're eating. And so that then feeds more of the commensal bacteria, and we can see this repeating again. We also don't have enough stomach acid. So our stomach acid is our first line of defense against parasites. So if we've got the right amount of stomach acid, the stomach acid should kill the low liars, whatever we've breathed in the air or in the environment, or whatever we've got from under our fingers, or what was on our sushi or on our bacon. Stomach acid should come and kill that off. If you're super stressed, then we have or you've got symptoms in your body. So whether that's rashes, bloating, hormonal symptoms, period symptoms, an imbalance, low iron, whatever your symptom might be, if you've got a symptom, we know that you've depleted your stomach acid, so you're in this loop already. So as part of getting rid of parasites, we also need to rebalance our stomach acid to stop future ones. So that can be our first line of defense if we eat sushi with a parasite on it. Stress is a major one because that's depleting our stomach acid. Then we don't eat traditional diets anymore. When we look at the Indian culture, the Asian culture, they're eating a lot of herbs and spices, fermented foods that would actually help keep this all in check, keep it in so that you're not getting parasites. So they're looking at that, looking at your balance of your gut bacteria, but also looking at foods that repel parasites, kill them off, like the garlics. And we're not eating fermented foods daily. So then we've also got the fact that we travel a lot more now. So we are international travelers. A lot of people, I travel a lot of the time. We've also got things like sushi that we eat now. Our great grandparents didn't have sushi. We've got a lot more access to international foods coming across borders, of people coming across borders, and then sharing that. So, you don't even need to go to a third world country or go to the US. You're not just US, anywhere in the world with parasites. Your friend can go, then share it, and then touch the grass, and they have scratched themselves, have scratched their dandruff, touched the grass, put their hands in, or gone swimming, and it could be in the chlorine. And now you've got 3 months of that being in the chlorine and that impacting all of those people. So you can see why 99% of us have it. So this is saying that I got from Dr. Todd White and Dr. Jay Davidson from Cellcore. They truly believe that if you have a pulse, there's a 99% chance that you'll have parasites. So I've gone through this a little bit, but I just wanted to break down how we expose to parasites when we live in the West. So it's through our food, number one, undercooked or raw meat, sushi, sashimi, raw fish, our deli meats, and unwashed fruits and vegetables, especially when we're in third world countries, but really even in any culture, if you're having foods that aren't washed properly. And so I like to say, especially with the food, it's like and also pork and bacon are really big sources of parasites. Now, what I like to say about this as well, though, is, well, I like to think about this in terms of it's like a lot of the foods that pregnant women are told not to eat are the foods high in parasites. So they go hand in hand. So I think that's a really good point to remember here is that if you kind of follow what you're allowed to eat if you've been pregnant, um, then you're probably not being exposed to parasites in your diet. Then we've got water. So especially if you're growing up like doing a lot of hiking, tramping in the bush, and you've drunken water from a natural stream, likely that it's going to have parasites. Then also ice from contaminated water, swimming in contaminated pools, lakes, or hot tubs because the parasites stay. Pets and animals, dogs and cats. And then if your dog, for example, sleeps on your bed, you're going to get exposed to them because they can now stay living alive on your bed covers. Soil and gardening and earthing and grounding, travel and the global food supply, person to person. So I've talked about from mum to child, but also through intercourse. So through our partners or partners. I was teased when I was single. A lot of clients would tease me and say, hey, while you're dating somebody, you'll have to ask them to do a parasite test so you can check what's happening with their gut bacteria. And then some other sneaky routes, how you'd get them is contaminated surfaces, door handles, shopping carts, playgrounds, and then flies, cockroaches, mosquitoes are all carriers. So living in the Western world really doesn't mean that we're parasite free at all. There are so many ways we can be exposed to them. So I think it's really important to now, before we wrap up, talk about what is a parasite. So a parasite, and you can have parasite people. Now, a lot of people, when they do the 10 days program, recognize that there's definitely been parasites living on them in terms of people, like really leeching off them. And so, a parasite is a living organism that depends entirely on a human host to survive, feeding off you and potentially harming you. Now, we've got two main types of parasites that impact us. So, this is really important because a lot of people will just talk about worms, but there's protozoas as well. So, we've got the haluminites, I call it that, I probably pronounced it wrong, and the protozoa. So protozoa comes from the Greek word proto, first, zone, animal. So literally first animals. So I think that's really important that we look at that. And then we've got worms. So this is just the difference. These are the types. If you get on the CDC website, you can look up these examples, and these are the two different types, protozoa and halomelites, when we're talking about parasites. And so this is really important to make that distinction. And then we've got ectoparasite, which I think is really important because a lot of people don't realize this. And this is the type of parasite that lives outside of the host rather than inside. So examples, and they feed off your body's blood. So that would be lice, ticks, and mosquitoes, and then they go on to spread parasites when they go and land on the next person and feed off their blood. So they're not in your internal body, they're feeding off you. Now, if you've done a parasite program before, not one of mine, but with somebody else's, if you've talked to somebody that's done parasites, taken herbs for parasites, and they've had symptoms, and now you're really worried and you don't want to take herbs or do anything about parasites because you're really worried, a few things to remember and why my programs are different. Parasites don't want to die for starters, so they are going to do anything and everything to stay alive, literally sucking the blood from you, or they're going to create intense cravings, so you keep feeding them. So there is what is called a die off, and so you that is a part of them dying. They don't want to, and so when you feel that, you will feel them dying. However, I make sure that I give you liver support. We're looking at what's happening in your body. We're looking at your lymphatic support, your drainage support, making sure that you're drinking enough water in my programs so that the die-off isn't really bad. Like that is the goal. I really don't want you to experience bad die-off. And when you're doing one of my programs, because the Telegram support, I'm there problem solving the symptoms for you. But if you don't want to do the Telegram, in the portal, the digital portal that I give you, I have tried to problem solve every single symptom that I've ever seen with somebody with my decade of clinical experience. A major reason people get headaches and skin rashes and breakouts when they're taking parasite herbs is not enough liver support. So while I encourage people to eat a lot by their diet during the program and drink a lot of water, I also give you from Biotics, which is an American company that I absolutely love. It's clinicians only, so it's clinical grade. I make sure that you get liver support as part of my program. We also need to make sure you're pooing every single day. Sometimes I'll actually use magnesium to support the person, or if they have magnesium in their cupboard at home, we'll use magnesium and other things to make sure you're pooing every single day. And we need to make sure you're eating enough fiber so you're able to bind out the dead parasites. We also need to make sure that you're drinking enough water, you're supporting your liver during the program, and your drainage pathways, all of them. And I really go into all the details of this on the portal and in the training during the 10 days, and all the support that you get, really looking at your lymphatic system. It becomes a daily part of the program. So we're supporting all of your drainage pathways while also looking at how stressed your body is and making sure that it's actually okay. There's different data points that I teach you to make sure that we're not stressing your body out and we're not going to cause a crash or fatigue. So we always go at your pace. Now, sometimes that means during the 10-day program that while other people are increasing their dose, we're actually decreasing your dose because you've had symptoms, you've had flares, you've had energy, and like your energy is crashing or you don't feel great. So then we modify it to support your body so you're still releasing parasites, but so it works for you and you can continue to live your life as a mum, as a business person, traveling, if you're on a holiday, if you've got meetings and conferences and all the things that life throws at us. The 10-day parasite program should be able to be built into every single day life. Like no client has to give up anything to be able to do the program. That is my goal because we support your body so well. Now, why most parasite programs protocols fail or why people don't feel good is there's no drainage support, there's no bile flow, there's no liver support, there's no lymphatic support, there's no mineral support, there's no nervous system regulation, and there's no data checking and checking with your body and making sure that we're not inflaming your body, but we're actually supporting it and making sure that you're pooing every single day. So these are a key component of my programs and why you're very well supported and looked after. Now, frequently asked questions that I get asked all the time is, do I have to do it around the full moon? Absolutely not. The thing about the full moon is if you're a doubter or you don't really believe in parasites or you want to see evidence, you're going to see it around the full moon. They are known to come out around the full moon 100%, especially in our children. It also impacts our hormones. So you'll get, depending on where you are in your cycle and the full moon, you'll also get different parasite symptoms. The next question I get is, does my whole family have to do it? Absolutely not. And I encourage one person to do it first so that you can experience it, you can see it, you can see how good you feel, and then you will be encouraging everyone else to do it. But plus, they'll want to do it. So I very much during my programs encourage one person first. And then, as and when you feel the need, you can do it. But you can also, the whole family can do it. You can also implement a lot of what you learn and what I call the 10-day challenges and bring that into your family's health, your children's health straight away as well. And you can just make these things a part of your family life. Do you pass parasites on via sex? Yes. Do you pass it on via sweating them out during the night in your bed sheets? Yes. Does your partner have to do it at the same time? Absolutely not. So no, I get asked that all the time, but often one partner does it first. Do you have to do all your children? Not all at once. No. Can I take any herbs and the ones that the influencers are talking about? Well, absolutely, you get to do you, but you're not going to get great results unless you're doing a targeted protocol with very specific support. And the herbs need to be a practitioner grade. Now, why I like working with Cellcore is they are FDA approved. It's a practitioner only product and supplement brand. So you're getting that extra level. Plus, you're getting my clinical knowledge, and we're making sure not only are you taking herbs, but you're supporting your drainage pathways, your liver, all the things that I just talked about. So, and that you're getting great energy so that you get the absolute best results possible. Will you be fixed in 10 days? Absolutely not. because of what we talked about with the life cycle, but you will see benefits, you will see changes to your health, and you will believe in this protocol and how different your life can be. You will get given hope that all of these symptoms that we talked about at the beginning can be gone and can be healed. Do I need to do this? If you've kind of been listening to this and working out some of your symptoms, and you think that you've had parasites for 20, 30 years, initially you're going to need to do quite a few programs in a row, like with a break, like I talked about. And then so do a 10-day program, have a break, then a few weeks later, months later, do another one. And then you can get to the maintenance level. Now, for me, the maintenance level, because of all my exposure, is at least one a year, but generally a couple of times a year. Why Cellcore products? Because Jay Davidson and Dr. Todd White are the leading doctors in parasite health, and the level of precision that they've created their products with is just next level. While I love other practitioner grade supplement companies, and for example, biotics I use for my adrenal support, I think it's the best in the world. Cellcore, their products are the best in the world for parasites, and that is how they started their company, and that is what they specialize in to begin with. Can I do this while breastfeeding and pregnant? Definitely not while you're pregnant. Nobody can take the parasite herbs. No, 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 not even liver support when you're on my watch and my guidance, and I'm supporting you as a client while you're pregnant. However, while you're breastfeeding, like I talked about with my pediatrician in the States with Tiny Health with Harvey, there can be benefits. Also, breastfeeding children, that could mean any age group. So you might have a 2-year-old that you're still breastfeeding. So I would reach out to me to the office at shellygarwith.com, or me a direct message on Instagram, and we can double check that for you because there are nuances to it. I don't have a straight rule because after working with people for so long, breastfeeding can mean a range of things. Nope, you don't need to change your diet much. You do need to increase your water intake. You do need to make sure you're not having dairy, you're not eating a lot of fruit, you're not having a lot of sugar. Those are the main things in terms of diet. If you're traveling, it absolutely works. We always have lots of clients traveling during this with work commitments, holidays, family commitments, all the things. Now, if you've heard horrible stories, what it really means is that they just weren't supported with all their different drainage pathways. So nobody needs to have an awful experience other than what you might see in the toilet bowl. Now, what you see in the toilet bowl, I kind of can't control in terms of how big it is. So that can be nasty for people. I 100% understand that. Like that can be, traumatizing or horrific. But you don't need to have horrible symptoms. It just means that the person, they've either done it with subpar quality herbs, not very good ones, from an influencer on social media. That's how they've followed it. They've done it just a generic one. They don't have all the drainage support. They haven't opened up their drainage pathways. They're not drinking enough water. They're not supporting their liver. They're not supporting their lymphatic system. So that is why, or they're going too hard, too strong, too fast. That is why there'll be horrible symptoms. You definitely do not need that as part of your parasite journey. If you do not believe in parasites, what I always encourage you to do is do one program. Do one of my 10-day programs, parasite programs, see how you feel. And I already know that your body, one thing I already know is that you'll see changes, but I really believe and I really encourage clients to connect back to their bodies and see their body as the ultimate truth, the ultimate evidence. You will always feel things in your body and learn about your body and get a deeper understanding of your body, a deeper understanding of you as a human being, as a person, of your nervous system, of your lymphatic system. You might even, because of this, be on a parasite person cleanse and get rid of a whole bunch of blood-sucking people in your life. And your mood, your mental health, like how you see life, all of these things change through doing a parasite program. So I really encourage you, if you've never done one before, give it a go and your body becomes the evidence, which I think is the really awesome thing. 10-day parasite program. So you've always got two options. You've got the option that you will listen to this masterclass, you've taken notes of it, you've thought about it, you've resonated with some of the symptoms, and you're going to think about it. The thing about parasites is you can't fix them, by just not eating sugar, if you've been told that, or just not by eating a certain food, or just by going on a SIBO diet, that does not get rid of them in your body. You have to take specific herbs to get the parasites out of your body. You can stop feeding them by not eating the sugar, by not drinking the sugary drinks or being on a SIBO diet. Yes, that is 100% true, but your life is going to be very restricted. I don't want my clients to live restricted lives with their diets to have good health outcomes. I want you to get rid of the symptoms in your body and feel amazing, and then eat the way you want to eat that resonates with you, that works for you, your life, your family, and not be living in fear of symptoms. Living in fear of symptoms, and I've seen this too often with clients over the years, where they're like, no, I can't eat that. No, I can't have that tiny bit of sugar. I'm going to get bloated. I'm going to get a rash. I'm going to get a headache. My energy, I'm going to crash. That is not health, and that is not the life that I want for my clients. So, two options. You can listen and you can say that was a great class. I learned so much. I'll think about that for my children. I'll think about that when I'm getting pregnant. Or you can decide to take action and learn about your lymphatic system, your drainage pathways, your stress testing, your data collection that I get you to do. All of these tools that I teach all my one-on-one clients, you can learn about that, plus learn about all the different ways that you can use these herbs as a part of your natural toolkit, and then also get rid of the parasites in your body so that you start to get rid of some of these symptoms. So I really encourage you not to just listen, not to just go, oh, I'm so empowered and educated now, but really take option two, which is take action and sign up to the 10-day parasite program. That is what I really encourage you to do. Now, if you're wondering what I use, this is a key component. We're looking at your stress testing, we're looking at your liver, I use the cell core herbs, plus we have lymphatic tools and other ways that I use these herbs. So I use these herbs after so many years of working with cell core. I've got so many different tricks in terms of you don't just orally take Para 3. You will see on the website and the 10-day parasite program page all the different ways you can take Para 3. So you're going to learn so much more than just how to ingest these herbs and get rid of symptoms. You will be blown away. So if you haven't already, sign up to the 10-day parasite program. If you have specific questions, reach out to the office@shelleygarworth.com, or direct message us and we will get back to you. I cannot wait to see you in the 10-day parasite program. Now, I would really love it. I absolutely love knowing what has resonated with you, what has helped you, what you'd like further information with. So I would love it once you've listened to this if you direct message me on social media or email the office@shelleygarworth.com telling me what resonated for you, what you've learned, what you're going to action when you're signing up to the 10-day parasite program. But what symptoms you're like, oh my gosh, that is me. I never knew that was parasites. I would love to hear all of those takeaways so then I know what to deep dive into next to help support you and educate and equip and empower you more. So I can't wait to see you on the 10-day parasite program. I am so glad that you joined this class and you get to learn for yourself, your community, your friends, your parents, your children, really how far-reaching parasites are. So I look forward to hearing from you and learning what you learned and what you found the most useful. Have a great day, great evening, wherever in the world you are when you listen to this.